I was going to propose to Megan. We'd been together for 4 years, lived in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, shared a dog named Ollie, and had joint Spotify playlists with stupid names like Cooking Vibes and Sad Bangers Only. We weren't flashy, but we were solid. Or so I thought. I'd even picked out a ring. Nothing over the top, just something simple that I knew she'd love. I was planning to propose during a weekend getaway in the mountains, her favorite place. But then she sat me down on a random Tuesday night and said 8 words that changed everything. I think I'm polyamorous, and I need space. I blinked. Polyamorous? Since when? She gave me this weird smile, like she was trying to sound enlightened and gentle all at once. It's something I've always kind of known, but I didn't feel safe exploring it until now. My stomach sank. I'd always been respectful of identity and growth. But this wasn't about some newfound truth, it felt weaponized. Like she was using the language of consent and self-discovery as a cover. So what does that mean for us? I asked, already knowing the answer. She didn't hesitate. It means I want to start seeing other people, specifically Jason. Jason, her ex. The one she'd told me was toxic but hard to quit. The one who used to text her drunk at 2 a.m., even during our 2nd year together. She swore she'd blocked him. I guess she'd unblocked more than his number. And you think I'm just okay with that? I asked. She shrugged. I hope you could be. I don't want to lose you, Adam. But I need to live my truth. Live her truth. Right. Then came the ultimatum, as if it was some mature negotiation. You can stay, and we'll figure this out together. Or, we break up. I just sat there, stunned. She kissed me on the forehead like I was a dying pet and said, you don't have to decide right now. But she'd already decided. She wanted Jason. She just wanted to keep me on the back burner while she sampled her nostalgia. I wasn't a partner, I was a safety net. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on the couch while Ollie curled up next to me, totally oblivious. Megan went to bed like nothing happened. I listened to the sound of her brushing her teeth, humming some Phoebe Bridgers song, and I felt something crack inside me. For a couple days, I went numb. I kept going to work. I took Ollie on walks. I answered Megan's texts with one-word replies. She was giving me space, while simultaneously posting cute throwbacks of her and Jason on Instagram stories. Subtle, but pointed. I didn't know what I was waiting for. Closure? An apology? A breakdown? Then, late one night, I was scrolling through Facebook. Don't judge me, I was desperate for distraction, and I stumbled across a tagged photo from 5 years ago. It was Megan and a woman who looked eerily like her, standing stiffly at some wedding. The caption said, "Can't believe these two are related. Violet, her half-sister." I remembered the name from one of Megan's bitter stories, something about betrayal and family drama that she never elaborated on. "We don't talk anymore," she'd said flatly. "She's poison." But I remembered the way her voice trembled just slightly when she said it. And suddenly, I had a thought I wasn't proud of. What if I reached out to her? Not because I expected anything. Not because I was ready to move on. But because, for once, I wanted someone on my side, someone who'd seen the same version of Megan I was seeing now. Someone who knew just how calculated she could be. I didn't reach out to Violet right away. I stared at her profile for 3 days, hovering over the message button like a teenager trying to ask someone out. Her page was private except for a few profile pictures, black hair with violet streaks, fitting, a nose ring, an unreadable expression. She looked like someone who had seen some things and stopped pretending otherwise. Finally, one night after 2 bourbons and one too many doom scrolls through Megan's Instagram feed, where she was now openly posting cryptic quotes about radical honesty and new beginnings, I typed out a message. "Hey, you don't know me, but I was with Megan for the last few years. Something happened, and I think you're one of the few people who might understand. If this is weird or intrusive, I'll disappear. I just don't know who else to talk to." I sent it, regretted it instantly, turned my phone over and went to bed. The next morning, I had a reply. "Adam, right? I was wondering when you'd reach out. Been a while since someone tried to process Megan with me. You got time for coffee this week?" We met at a small cafe downtown. She was already seated when I walked in. Iced black coffee, leather jacket, that same unreadable look. She didn't hug me, just gestured to the seat across from her. "You look like you've been hit by a truck," she said. I laughed bitterly. That obvious? She only reaches for polyamory when she wants to cheat without guilt. Classic Megan. I blinked. She's done this before? Oh, Adam. Violet stirred her coffee like she was mixing cement. You really don't know, do you? We spent the next hour swapping war stories. Hers went deeper. Childhood manipulation, stolen boyfriends, gaslighting their mother into silence. Violet hadn't spoken to Megan in over 6 years, Not since Megan got her kicked out of a shared apartment over some twisted lie involving a guy Violet had dated first. It was textbook Megan. Play the victim, flip the narrative, walk away clean. I felt seen. And a little sick. This wasn't just a relationship gone wrong. I'd been dating a professional manipulator. Someone who could rewrite reality without blinking. After that meeting, Violet and I started texting more. At first it was just catharsis, screenshots of Megan's cringe posts, sarcastic memes, dark jokes about trauma bonding. But it started shifting. We'd talk late into the night, venting and laughing. She wasn't just Megan's opposite. She was sharp, dryly funny, and painfully honest. One night, we were on the phone when she said, "You ever get revenge fantasies?" I hesitated. Lately, yeah. More than I'd like to admit. You know Thanksgiving's coming up, right? I laughed. What? You want to crash the party? She was quiet for a second. I wasn't invited. Haven't been in years. But if you showed up with me. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. It wasn't just a petty idea. It was poetic. Megan was planning to introduce Jason at Thanksgiving, make it official in front of the whole family. She thought I'd either vanish quietly or sit there like a good little ex while she flaunted her evolved lifestyle. But what if she looked across the table and saw the one person she never wanted to face again? What if I stopped playing the nice guy? The thought of walking into that house with Violet on my arm made something deep in my chest crackle like firewood. Not just revenge. Something cleaner. A full circle. A reckoning. Still, I asked, wouldn't that be messed up? Like using each other? She replied, only if it stops there. That night, I dreamed about Megan's face when she saw us walk in. But more than that, I dreamed about Violet laughing in the kitchen, stealing bites of pie before dinner, smiling like someone who finally had the upper hand. And I realized, I wanted that more than I wanted closure. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away. Violet and I spent those days carefully crafting our plan. Not just logistics, but tone. We didn't want to walk in like we were trying to cause a scene. We wanted to glide in like we belonged there, because Megan's biggest fear wasn't confrontation. It was exposure. I asked Violet if she was sure she wanted to do this. She said, she erased me. If you think I'm not ready to haunt the family photo like a damn ghost, you haven't been paying attention. Meanwhile, Megan was still sending me sporadic texts. Hope you're okay. Jason might come to Thanksgiving. Just want to be transparent. If you're still figuring things out, no pressure. I'm here when you're ready to talk. She kept calling it polyamory, as if giving her cheating a progressive name made it a valid identity. She didn't care about structure, consent, or communication. She wanted the thrill of chaos with the security of a backup plan, me. I didn't reply to most of her messages. The few times I did, I kept it short. I'm good. Taking space like you asked. Hope it goes well. She had no clue Violet and I were texting every night, planning outfits, practicing how we'd act casual but confident. She didn't know that when she called me Adam in her last message, Violet joked, I should start calling you that too, like I'm stealing your name just to spite her. We met up 3 days before the dinner to finalize everything. Violet walked in wearing a deep green dress and boots that made her look 6 inches taller. She twirled dramatically and said, too much. I couldn't answer right away. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked powerful. Like someone who'd survived the worst and now picked her own lighting. Thanksgiving Day arrived. I drove to the family's suburban house with Violet in the passenger seat, sipping coffee and humming along to a playlist she made called Bad Decisions and Worse Intentions. When we pulled up, she exhaled. Last chance to back out. I looked at her. Still think this is just revenge? She met my gaze. No, not anymore. We walked to the door. I knocked. Megan's mom opened it. Her eyes widened when she saw Violet. There was a half-second of shock before she composed herself and said, with forced warmth, Violet and Adam? What a surprise. Good to see you, Linda, Violet said sweetly. Inside, the house buzzed with awkward energy. Megan hadn't arrived yet. We made polite small talk with extended family. I saw her younger cousins whispering and sneaking glances at us. Someone handed me a cider. Violet slid her arm through mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then the front door opened. Megan walked in hand with Jason, and stopped dead in the entryway. I watched her eyes flick from me, to Violet, to our hands, and back again. Her mouth parted slightly. Are you kidding me? She said, loud enough for the room to hush. Hi, Megan, I said. Happy Thanksgiving. Jason looked confused. Wait, what's happening? Megan dropped his hand like it was radioactive. You brought her. Violet raised an eyebrow. Nice to see you too, sis. Linda tried to intervene. Girls, maybe. But Megan snapped. You think this is funny? You're using him to get at me? Violet laughed, not cruelly, just tired. Sweetheart, I didn't reach out to him. He came to me. Maybe ask yourself why that happened. Jason, now fully catching up, muttered, wait, this is the sister who... Shut up, Jason. Megan barked. Everyone stared. A second later, someone in the kitchen dropped a fork. I invited you here to meet my family, she hissed at Jason, and she turned back to me, her voice shaking. You're really doing this? With her? I shrugged. I thought you were all about open connections. Radical honesty. Remember? She went pale. Violet took my hand and said, come on, let's get a plate before the stuffing runs out. And just like that, we walked away. The room was dead silent. Then slowly, awkwardly, conversation started up again. Megan stood there, frozen. Jason turned and walked back out the front door. I didn't even feel triumphant. I just felt done. Megan didn't leave. She spent the rest of Thanksgiving dinner sulking at the far end of the table, pushing her food around with a fork while occasionally shooting daggers in our direction. Jason didn't come back. No one asked where he went. To her credit, Violet didn't gloat. She didn't make a show of holding my hand or laughing extra loud. She just existed. Fully, unapologetically. And that was enough to make Megan unravel. I overheard Megan's aunt whispering. I thought Violet was the one who, and her sister-in-law cutting in with. No, that was Megan, actually. Violet got iced out. Turns out, family memory isn't as loyal as Megan thought. Midway through dessert, Megan finally snapped. So, are you guys together now? She asked, loud enough for the table to quiet again. I looked up. We're figuring it out. That's rich, she spat. You ghost me for a week, then show up with my estranged sister like it's no big deal? Violet set her fork down. Calmly. You gave him an ultimatum, Meg. He chose. You weaponized my trauma, she said, pointing at Violet. You always do this. You make yourself look like the victim so people forget how toxic you are. Violet's jaw tightened. You called me poison. For years. Told everyone I was unstable when all I did was tell the truth. You can lie to them if you want, but don't lie to yourself. Megan laughed bitterly. Oh please, you think this makes you a hero? This is pathetic. You're just mad I got to him first. She turned to me. And you? You're a damn coward. You couldn't handle a real relationship with complexity, so you ran to the first person who hated me enough to take you in. That stung. I won't lie. But I've been holding something in too long. You know what, Megan? I said, voice steady. You didn't want a poly relationship. You wanted a cheap pass. You didn't care about honesty. You just didn't want to feel guilty. She froze. I would have respected you more if you just said, I want Jason back. But you dressed it up in self-discovery to look like growth. It wasn't. It was cowardice. The table went dead quiet. Her father, who hadn't said much all night, cleared his throat and said, I think that's enough, Megan. Megan stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. You're all pathetic, she said. Pretending this is okay. Letting her come back like she didn't ruin everything. Violet met her gaze. You ruined it, Megan. You just thought no one would ever call you out. Megan stormed out. This time, no one followed. Violet exhaled. Well, that was subtle. I laughed, softly. I think your pie was more explosive. The rest of the evening passed in this weird, suspended calm. Some relatives came up to us with gentle nods or awkward smiles, as if trying to pick a side without saying so. No one mentioned Megan again. When we got back to my apartment, Violet sat on the couch and kicked off her boots. I should feel better than I do, she said. I sat beside her. Yeah. We stared at the ceiling for a bit. I didn't come into this expecting to catch feelings, she said quietly. Same, I admitted. Then she added, but I don't regret it. Neither did I. We sat in silence, the kind that says we survived something. And not just Megan. We'd survived ourselves. The next morning, Megan declared war. I woke up to 15 missed texts and 3 voicemails, all from her. The first few were predictable, rants about betrayal, accusations that I'd embarrassed her in front of her family. Then it escalated. She posted a long, unhinged Instagram story calling me emotionally abusive and Violet a predator who groomed me while I was vulnerable. She included vague references, screenshots out of context, and a black and white crying selfie for dramatic flair. Violet called me laughing. She used a Lana Del Rey lyric in a breakdown post. That's a full spiral. I wish it was funny, I said, rubbing my eyes. Then came the messaging campaign. Megan began reaching out to mutual friends. Some sent me screenshots. She told one friend I'd emotionally manipulated her into thinking polyamory was wrong. She told another that Violet had always had a thing for her boyfriends, and that this was a long con of jealousy. And then she dropped the real bomb. She made a Reddit post under a throwaway, of course, with a dramatic title like, "My 27F, BF, 30M, started dating my abusive estranged sister after I came out as poly. Now he's painting me as the villain." It blew up in a small relationship advice subreddit. People took the bait. They called me controlling, said Violet was a predator, even speculated that we'd been seeing each other before the breakup. I didn't want to respond. I really didn't. But Violet said something that stuck with me. Silence is only noble if the truth is known. So we crafted a quiet counteroffensive. No drama. No retaliation. Just the truth. We sent private messages to a handful of mutual friends, ones who mattered. We shared a few details Megan had forgotten to mention. How she lied about blocking Jason, how she gave me an ultimatum, how Violet and I hadn't spoken for years before this, and how Megan had smeared Violet for half a decade to cover her own guilt. Then Violet made one single post. A screenshot of a note that read, "Just because you use progressive language doesn't mean you're being honest. Polyamory isn't cheating. Estrangement isn't abuse. And choosing to walk away from manipulation isn't cruelty. This isn't drama. This is self-respect." She didn't name Megan. She didn't have to. The energy shifted almost instantly. People began commenting things like, "Wait, I think I saw the other side of this story," or, "Now I'm questioning everything I read earlier." One of Megan's close friends unfollowed her and DM'd me to say, "She's done this before, hasn't she?" The cracks spread fast. Megan tried to backpedal. She deleted her post, then made a new one that said, "I'm stepping away from social media for my mental health." But before she went, she sent me one last message. "You win. Hope she was worth it." I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about winning. It wasn't even about revenge anymore. It was about finally seeing Megan for who she really was and choosing to stop looking away. That night, Violet came over. We didn't talk much. We ordered takeout, watched some terrible true crime docuseries, and let Ollie take up most of the couch. At one point, she looked at me and said, "Do you think we're just trauma bonding?" I thought about it. "Maybe that's how it started," I said. "But it's not how it feels anymore." She nodded. "Good. Me neither." Then she fell asleep on my shoulder, breathing steady, as if she hadn't just helped me tear down an entire chapter of my life and build something better from the rubble. Megan went quiet after that. Not just on social media, everywhere. No more messages, no calls, no cryptic subtweets. It was like she evaporated. At first, I expected it to be the calm before another storm. I braced myself every time my phone buzzed. But a week passed, then two, and still, silence. Violet and I kept seeing each other. Slowly, steadily, without the urgency or bitterness that had colored those first few weeks. We started doing normal couple things, movie nights, grocery runs, getting irrationally angry about how expensive coffee was getting. The drama faded, and in its place was something I hadn't felt in years, calm. She never pressured me, never rushed me into defining what we were. But one night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, I looked at her in the mirror and said, "I think I want to do this. For real." She paused, toothbrush in her mouth. "Do what?" "Us." She smiled, toothpaste foam in the corner of her lip. "Took you long enough." A few days later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Megan. "I'm not asking for a conversation. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for everything. I'm not there yet. But for how I handled things with you. I used you. I know that. You didn't deserve it. I hope you're okay. That's all." I stared at the screen for a while. There was no manipulation, no guilt trip. Just a few lines of exhausted honesty. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, honestly, I wasn't anymore. But some things don't need a response. Some doors don't need slamming shut. They just stop being doors. I showed Violet the message. "Think she means it?" she asked. "I think it's the closest she'll ever get." We didn't talk about Megan much after that. Her presence shrank from a storm cloud to a speck in the rearview mirror. One night, while flipping through my junk drawer looking for batteries, I found the engagement ring I never gave Megan. I'd honestly forgotten it was there. I took it out, looked at it under the kitchen light. It was still beautiful, small diamond, thin gold band, tasteful. I turned to Violet. "Want to pawn this and put the money toward a trip?" She raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to commit felony-level petty?" I grinned. "I'm asking you to commit to a week in Italy this summer." She didn't even blink. "Only if we drink wine on rooftops and lie about how we met." "Deal." We booked it that night, Florence in June. I'd never been out of the country before. Violet had, once, for a disastrous backpacking trip with a guy who ended up cheating on her with their hostile host. "It'll be better this time," I said. She nodded. "Because we've already done the dramatic part. This is just the epilogue." I like that. The idea that maybe, just maybe, the best parts of life come after the worst ones. Not in spite of them, but because of what they burn away. Italy was everything we needed. Florence in June felt like a dream someone else had paid for, a gift we didn't quite believe we were allowed to enjoy. The food, the air, the light. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like I had to be on guard. No eggshells. No calculating how someone might twist my words later. Violet and I stayed in a tiny apartment above a bakery that smelled like sugar and espresso every morning. We wandered cobblestone streets with no plan. She made me try gelato flavors I couldn't pronounce. I made her take cheesy selfies on every bridge we crossed. One night, we sat on a rooftop overlooking the city. There were candles, cheap wine, and a breeze that carried laughter from other balconies nearby. You know, she said, swirling her glass, if you'd proposed to Megan, this might have been your honeymoon. I looked at her. No. It would have been another performance. Another attempt to fix something that wasn't broken. It was just wrong. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, do you ever worry that this started for the wrong reasons? I didn't have to think long. No. I think the reason we started doesn't matter as much as the reason we stayed. She smiled at that. We didn't take many photos on the trip. Not because we were hiding, but because for once, we didn't feel the need to prove anything. Not to ourselves. Not to anyone else. When we got home, things weren't magically perfect. There were still awkward family conversations. One of Megan's cousins unfollowed me and DM'd Violet something passive-aggressive. Megan never reached out again, though I found out through a friend that she moved to another city for a fresh start. Good. I hoped she found one. I really did. But I had my own now. Violet and I eventually moved in together. Not because we were rushing into anything, but because every night she went home felt like we were postponing the inevitable. Ollie approved. He started sleeping curled between us like a smug little bridge. One rainy afternoon, I opened that same junk drawer again, where the engagement ring used to be. I smiled when I realized it was gone. We never did pawn it. We donated it to a nonprofit that repurposed jewelry from broken engagements for domestic violence survivors. Violet called it symbolic recycling. We don't talk about Megan much anymore. But every now and then, when we hear someone misusing words like polyamory or boundaries as shields for selfishness, Violet will just raise her eyebrows and say, Megan's school of emotional gymnastics. And we laugh. Not because it didn't hurt, but because we're not stuck there anymore. What happened with Megan was ugly. Messy. Infuriating. But it led me here. To someone who calls me out without cutting me down. To someone who knows what it's like to be burned and still chooses to keep the fire alive. Sometimes love doesn't arrive the way you think it should. Sometimes it shows up wearing boots, holding your worst memories in one hand and a bottle of cheap wine in the other, saying, yeah, that sucked. Let's not do it like that ever again. And that's enough. That's everything.